This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm Jake, a 32-year-old software engineer. I thought a weekend camping trip in Maple Creek would help me clear my head after my breakup. I've camped before, not a ton, but enough to know the basics. It felt good to be surrounded by the towering pines and the crisp autumn air. I never stopped thinking about what happened after that peaceful start. I set up my tent near the serene lake. It was quiet, just me in the woods. The first night passed without much issue. I thought about my past relationship and how it all fell apart. I was feeling a little more relaxed. But on the second night, everything changed. Around midnight, something woke me up. At first, it was just a rustling sound outside, maybe a raccoon or a deer. I tried to dismiss it, but then I heard footsteps. It was like someone was walking around my tent. My heart was racing as I strained to listen. The noises stopped suddenly. I felt cold, and a shiver ran down my spine. I thought I might have been imagining it. Maybe it was nothing. The next day, I decided to explore the surrounding woods. I hoped that would help me shake off the unease. As I walked, I spotted strange symbols carved into the old trees. I thought maybe kids had been out there messing around, but something about them felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in those woods. My heart raced again as I glanced around, but I didn't see anyone. That night, I went to bed early, convinced I could shake the strange thoughts. I pulled the sleeping bag over me and tried to sleep. But then, voices echoed through the trees. They sounded familiar, and I realized they were snippets of conversations I'd had with my ex. The laughter twisted into something that felt wrong, like a mockery. I wasn't sure if I was awake or dreaming. I wanted to call out, to shout back at whatever it was, but the words caught in my throat. I could feel my pulse quickening as I lay frozen in my sleeping bag. I heard a movement, something brushing against the side of my tent. My instincts kicked in. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the tent, ready to confront whatever was out there. Then, I saw it, or rather, I didn't see anything. The outline of a figure stood just at the edge of the trees, blending into the darkness. My fingers shook over the flashlight. I flicked it on, but it just illuminated empty space. It felt like something was watching me, but I couldn't tell if it was real. That I backed away slowly, heart pounding. Just when I thought the encounter couldn't get weirder, I heard a whisper right next to my ear. "You shouldn't be here." I turned around, the flashlight beam dancing across the woods, but I was alone. Maybe this was just all in my head, but I don't know. I still wonder if it really happened. Was I really losing my grip on reality, or was something else out there in the woods? The next morning came, but it felt heavier than usual. I had barely slept through the night, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. I thought about packing up and leaving, but part of me wanted to stay in those woods and confront whatever was happening. I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something I needed to discover. I decided to head out and follow a small trail I noticed the day before. It wound deeper into the woods and felt like it might lead me back to the strange symbols. Maybe understanding them would clear my mind. Every step I took was filled with uncertainty, but I pushed forward, hoping to make sense of everything. After a while, I stumbled upon a clearing. In the middle stood a large stone with more carvings, similar to the ones on the trees. The patterns spiraled and twisted, forming shapes that looked almost human-like. I felt uneasy looking at them, like they were watching me. I could almost hear the whispers again, but this time they were clearer. "Find us." I took a step back, my instincts screaming at me to leave. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, chilling me to the bone. The air felt electric, and I tried to shake off the panic. As I turned away, something caught my eye. A small, worn-down journal lay half-buried in the leaves. I hesitated, but bent down to pick it up. That IT was tattered, but I opened it anyway. The pages were filled with sketches of the symbols and frantic writings. I quickly flipped through, and a chill ran through me as I read phrases like "they're watching and they want to be found." As I continued, a fear settled in my chest. I was no longer sure if I was the hunter or the hunted. That's when I heard it again, the laughter. My heart sank as I recognized it, but it wasn't just a memory. It filled the air around me. I looked up, and there, in the distance, I saw shadowy figures dancing between the trees. I couldn't make out their faces, but the laughter grew louder, mixing with the whispers. You shouldn't be here. Panicked, I began to backtrack, clutching the journal tightly as I tried to navigate back to my tent. The laughter echoed behind me, following me like a malevolent shadow. I stumbled and nearly fell, but I regained my balance. Just as I thought I lost them, I glanced back and there they were closer than before, their forms shifting in the undergrowth that I ran. I couldn't think about anything but getting back to the safety of my tent. The fear propelled me forward as the laughter sent shivers down my spine. I could feel them gaining on me. What did they want? Why were they after me? The trees blurred past me, but then I tripped over a root and hit the ground hard. The journal slipped from my grasp, landing in the dirt. I scrambled to my feet, ready to keep running, but something stopped me. An overwhelming urge to look back gripped me. A part of me wanted to see who was chasing me. As I turned, everything fell silent. The laughter vanished, replaced by a bone-deep chill. I stood frozen, staring into the shadows, waiting for something to emerge. My breath came quick and shallow as the air thickened. I had to know if they were still there, then everything went dark. I blinked as my eyes adjusted to the darkness. It was a suffocating kind of dark, thick and heavy. I couldn't hear anything, not even the rustle of leaves. Panic surged through me. Had I passed out? I took a cautious step forward, my foot crunching on twigs. The sound felt far too loud in the silence. It was then that I saw a faint glow ahead, like a distant candle. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. What if it was a trap? I didn't want to stay in the dark, though, so I moved toward the light. Each step felt slow, almost deliberate. As I neared the glow, I noticed it wasn't a candle, but a cluster of faintly glowing rocks, perfectly arranged in a circle. The symbols from the journal were etched on them, pulsing softly like they were alive, and my heart raced, and memories of what I had read flooded back to me. Find us. The words echoed in my mind, now almost demanding. I knelt beside the stones. They felt warm, emitting a gentle heat that wrapped around my fingers. This was the connection I needed, the clue that might reveal their secrets. I traced one of the symbols with my fingertip, and a surge of energy shot through me. At that moment, the laughter returned closer now, more insistent. You shouldn't be here. I jumped back, heart pounding. The light from the stones flickered, then dimmed. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadowy figures again. But all that greeted me was silence. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if something was lurking just beyond the trees. Then I remembered the journal. I rummaged through my pocket, pulling it out. In my frantic state, I hadn't even thought to check if it contained anything more about these stones. Flipping through, a new page caught my attention. It depicted a ritual, something about harnessing the energy from the stones. Awakening, the handwriting read. It felt urgent, almost desperate. I scanned the rest. They were once protectors. Now they crave the living. My stomach twisted. Protectors? Crave? I was treading in dangerous territory. Whatever these beings were, they were hungry for something more than just my fear. The laughter swelled again, a cacophony of sounds blending into a haunting symphony. It was as if they were celebrating, beckoning me to join them, that I couldn't stay here. I had to leave. Clutching the journal, I stood to flee, but my foot caught on something hidden beneath the leaves. I stumbled forward, arms flailing, and my body slammed into the stones. Suddenly, the circle illuminated with an intense brightness. The symbols flared to life, casting eerie shadows against the trees. I felt a pull, like a strong current dragging me into the circle of stones. No, I shouted, but my voice was drowned out by the roaring laughter that now erupted around me. I was entrapped, and the energy surged with a power I had never felt before. Then came the whispers, more urgent than ever. Join us. I screamed, but the words fell flat in my throat. This was no longer just a camping trip, it was a reckoning. And the true question was, what did they want from me? The light from the stones pulsed around me, almost blinding in its intensity. It felt like the very air was vibrating with energy wrapping around me like a tight cocoon. I struggled, desperately trying to pull away, but it was as if I were anchored to the ground. The whispers echoed in my mind, growing louder. Join us. Each repetition twisted in my gut. I felt sweat trickle down my back. This wasn't just an invitation. It was a demand. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my arm. I looked down to see the jagged edge of one of the stones pressing against me, drawing blood. Panic surged, igniting every survival instinct within me. I couldn't die here. I had to escape. Just then, the laughter shifted now. It was shrill and chaotic, like a horde of voices fighting for attention. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the sound to stop, but it only grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. Then, everything went dark. The light from the stones vanished, plunging me back into the thick darkness I had first stumbled into. I staggered, disoriented, breathing heavily as I tried to regain my sense of direction. That unsettling feeling of being watched returned, but this time it was accompanied by a smothering presence. As if something was looming very close, I opened my eyes again, feeling my heartbeat thrumming in my ears. There was still no sign of anything, yet that sense of dread squeezed tighter. I took small, careful steps away from where the stones had been, unsure if I was moving in the right direction. Suddenly, I heard it rustling in the underbrush. My blood ran cold. I turned sharply, eyes wide, scanning the dark trees that surrounded me. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. The rustling stopped. Then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. It was tall and thin, dressed in tattered cloth that hung loosely from its gaunt frame. Pale skin glimmered in the faint moonlight, and black eyes locked onto mine. My breath caught in my throat. It looked almost human, but something was wildly off. "Bring her to us," it rasped, its voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down my spine. Just like that, the laughter returned, louder than before, echoing around us like a twisted chorus. Backing away, I stumbled over roots and rocks, my focus narrowing on the figure. It took a step toward me, and I spun around, running blindly into the darkness. I needed to find a way out, and fast. My heart raced, but I could hear their laughter still, chasing me as I ran. I thought of the journal. What did it mean about protectors and those who craved? Could this figure be one of them? My mind whirled with questions. I felt that pull again, but this time it was from more than just the stones. It felt as if the very forest itself wanted to drag me back. And then I heard something I hadn't expected. A soft giggle, innocent and bright, breaking through the chaos. My heart sank. Another figure was ahead of me, blurred in the shadows, beckoning with a pale hand. That giggle was wrong. So very wrong. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice wavering. "Join us," both figures whispered, their voices intertwining. I froze. Fear consumed me as I realized I was surrounded. They were closing in, and I had nowhere to run. The forest felt alive, shifting around me, urging me to embrace the darkness I had stumbled into. But I was not ready to surrender. Something deep within pushed back. I took a deep breath and prepared to fight back or run for my life, because it was clear that my camping trip had turned into a nightmare. I didn't know how to escape. I ran. The laughter of those figures echoed in my ears, a cruel lullaby, driving my feet faster through the dense foliage. Branches reached out like skeletal hands, scratching at my arms and face as I desperately sought an escape. The night felt alive, a maze designed to trap me within its darkness. Then I spotted a glimmer of light through the trees. Hope surged within me, pushing me onward. I veered toward the brightness. Hoping against hope, it led to safety. But with every step I took, the sound of laughter faded, and a new sound took its place, a soft, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat. What was that? I stumbled into a clearing, and the icy grip of fear tightened around me. The source of the light was now clear, a massive, ancient tree with a hollow at its base. Vines adorned its trunk, glowing faintly in a ghostly hue. I stared at the tree, a pull inside me almost magnetic, but a voice in my head screamed that it was wrong. "Get away from there!" I yelled at myself, but I could barely hear my own words over the thumping. My gut twisted. Part of me wanted to approach, to dive into the mystery and find answers. Another part screamed to run, to keep running. And then, I noticed something else, a shape emerging from the shadows behind the tree. I froze again. This one was different. It didn't move like the others. It stood still, shrouded in darkness, but glimmering eyes caught the light, reflecting sharp and calculating. Help! It breathed, or at least that's what I thought I heard. Its voice was low, barely more than a whisper, as if it were struggling to find its words. Help! I echoed, my voice hoarse. You want to help me? Yes, it replied, and as it stepped closer, I could see its face. It was hauntingly beautiful, but there was something wrong, something fragmented about it, a distortion under the surface. Why should I trust you? I asked, my eyes darting toward the glowing tree, then back to the figure. Because they will take you, it said softly, a hint of urgency lacing its tone. You're not meant for them. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Who are they? Those who crave. They want you to join, to give in, it warned, glancing back toward the shadows. But you have the power to fight. Fight? I nearly laughed, though the sound was tinged with hysteria. How could I possibly fight them? By using the light, it motioned toward the tree. It protects from the darkness. I hesitated, glancing back over my shoulder, half expecting to see the other figures closing in. But there was nothing, just the stillness of the forest, enveloped in a thick intelligence that felt threatening. Then the laughter erupted again, this time from several directions. I was running out of time. What do I do? I asked, choking on my fear. Trust, the figure urged, stepping further into the light of the tree. It can illuminate the truth. I looked back at the tree, and the glow felt warmer now, almost inviting. But the fear of the known darkness closing in was stronger. That's when I saw it, a shadow slipping from the underbrush, forming into the twisted figures I had tried to escape. My breath quickened, and with one last look at the figure beside the tree, desperation drove me to take a step forward toward the light. As my foot met the edge of the glow, the shadows shrieked, distorting in agony. The ground beneath me shifted, revealing a path into the light. I couldn't look back now. I had to know what lay ahead, but the question loomed. Would I be met with salvation or another nightmare? I stepped into the light, and for a moment, everything felt different. The warmth wrapped around me, chasing away the cold dread that had gripped my heart. I could hear the rhythmic thumping more clearly now, almost like a heartbeat syncing with my own. The path before me glowed brighter, lined with shimmering petals that seemed to pulse as if they were alive. But the relief was short-lived. The laughter of the figures faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. I looked around, trying to take in my surroundings. The ancient tree loomed behind me, its hollow mouth gaping like a dark warning. I had crossed a threshold, but I wasn't sure what lay ahead. In the distance, I saw a movement, a flicker of light coming from deeper within the grove. I hesitated. Should I explore further, or turn back? A sense of urgency tugged at me. They could still be lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to retreat. Taking a deep breath, I moved forward cautiously. The glow grew stronger, illuminating a clearing that held something unexpected, a circle of stones, each inscribed with odd markings. They seemed to hum with energy, vibrating softly under my fingertips as I brushed against one. What are you? I whispered, curiosity battling with my instincts. The figure from before appeared at my side, watching me intently. Its eyes glimmered, as if it were gauging my reaction. They're the symbols of protection, it said, its voice low. An ancient language. They keep the darkness at bay. Protection from what? I asked. From the ones who crave, it replied, turning toward the deeper shadows. But they have their ways of reaching you. I felt a chill run through me. I glanced back at the entrance to the grove. It felt like a barrier now, one that could easily be breached. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the trees, echoing like a gunshot. My heart raced as I instinctively moved closer to the figure. What was that? A warning, it said, urgency tinging its tone. They're here. We must be quick. I followed the figure as it darted between the stones, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I didn't know what was closing in on us, but every instinct screamed that it was bad. That's when I stumbled upon something chilling a small pile of stone like a grave marker. Each one was engraved with names, some familiar, haunting echoes from my past. I froze, my eyes scanning the jagged letters. "No, this can't be," I murmured, feeling the air thicken around me. "They're dead. They surrendered to the darkness," the figure whispered. "You my hands?" I interrupted, glancing at my palms. "What if I can't fight?" "They chose to join," it said, a glimmer of empathy in its eyes. "Do you choose to resist?" I swallowed hard, acutely aware of how vital my next choice felt. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a rustle erupted from the trees behind me. I turned, my heart racing as the shadows began to shift and dance. "Run," the figure commanded. I took off without thinking, propelled by panic. My feet pounded against the earth, and I could hear the laughter rising again, a cacophony of voices calling out, taunting me. The stakes were high, and I was running out of time. As I sprinted, I could feel them closing in. I glanced at the figure, but it was gone, replaced by dark, twisting shapes. Everything felt surreal, distorted. I had to find safety, but the path ahead became murky, and then everything went dark. With a scream caught in my throat, I plunged further into the unknown. I had to escape, but where would this darkness lead me next? I landed hard on the ground, the impact jolting my body awake. The darkness felt alive, swirling around me like thick fog. I gasped, trying to catch my breath, my surroundings unclear. Blinking rapidly, I struggled to make sense of where I was. Sounds echoed through the murkiness, whispers, faint and dissonant. Panic washed over me as I pushed myself up. I was alone, yet I could sense movement nearby, shadows shifting just beyond my reach. They felt close, too close. "Get up," I urged myself, fighting against the gnawing terror gripping my chest. I stumbled forward, tried to find a clearer path. The air was thick, oppressive, and the chills seemed to wrap around me like chains. Then I saw a faint glimmer cutting through the haze. I moved toward it, drawn to the light like a moth. As I stumbled closer, the light dimmed, revealing what looked like an arch carved from twisting vines. The stones pulsed gently, as if breathing. "Please, let this lead somewhere safe," I muttered, pressing my palms against the cool surface. My heart raced with hope and skepticism. Suddenly, a harsh laughter burst from the dark behind me. I spun around, just in time to catch a glimpse of flickering figures, their faces obscured yet radiating an unsettling familiarity. They were the same silhouettes from before, grinning wide as they danced in the shadows. Elena, one called, its voice a chilling echo of my own. "Come, join us." I stumbled back, the laughter growing louder, blending into a sinister melody that wrapped around my mind. "No, I want tea," I yelled, voice cracking. But deep down, I felt the pull their words weaving into my thoughts like a dark spell. Heart pounding, I turned back to the archway, desperate to escape. The moment I took a step, I heard it again, a crack like thunder. The ground shuddered beneath me. I felt it ripple through my bones, a promise of something dreadful. Before I could react, a shadow rushed from the trees, blocking the entrance. It lunged at me, eyes glinting with a malevolent hunger. I froze, an animal instinct urging me to run, but my feet remained planted in fear. "Don't look at it," a voice shouted from the darkness. I recognized it as the figure S, but it seemed distant, enveloped by the chaos. "Focus on the light. Go." With trembling hands, I pulled myself toward the archway. The light flickered, almost extinguishing, but I could see a path winding through it. I took a leap of faith and dove into the light just before the shadow lunged at me. I fell through the arch. I was enveloped in a blinding white glow. The laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence. I landed on grass, the air no longer thick and choking. But even as I lay there, catching my breath, I could still feel their presence lurking, reaching for me. That S when I realized I hadn't escaped. I was simply in a different kind of darkness. I sat up, scanning my new surroundings, and that S when I saw it, a familiar name carved into a tree. My heart dropped. No, now, I had to figure out how to fight this twisted reality before the darkness consumed me completely. I scrambled to my feet, dreading what I might find. The carving on the tree was unmistakable, my brother's name. It had been years since I'd seen it, yet here it was, etched inward like a cruel reminder of loss. The forest around me felt alive, watching, waiting. Heart racing, I stepped back. How could this be? Memories of our last camping trip flooded my mind, laughter, warmth, the smell of pine trees. We'd always come here together, but that day had turned dark. I pushed those thoughts away, refusing to linger on the past. I needed to focus. The air was different now. It buzzed with tension. I glanced around, ready for anything to jump out at me. But the trees were silent. Then a faint rustle caught my attention. I turned my head, squinting into the thick trees. At first, I saw nothing, just shadows slipping in and out of the dim light. But then I noticed movement, a figure darting between the trunks. "Hello," I called, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence answered me, thick and mocking. I stepped cautiously toward the sound, adrenaline fueling my curiosity. Each step felt heavy, like the ground itself was reluctant to let me go. Suddenly, I heard it again, louder now. A low, growling sound reverberated from deeper within the woods. My heart raced at the thought of what could be lurking just out of sight. "Stay calm," I told myself. "You can handle this." That's when I spotted flickering lights dancing in the distance. They looked almost like fireflies, but moved too fast, zipping around like they had a life of their own. I hesitated, torn between fear and fascination. But the pull toward them was strong. Without thinking, I hurried after them, my footsteps muffled by the soft ground. As I got closer, the lights began to swirl together, forming shapes that seemed to twist and turn. I stopped, breath hitching in my throat, as the shapes morphed into faces twisted, contorted versions of my own. My blood ran cold. "Join us, Elena," they whispered in unison, their voices a haunting echo of the darker laughter from before. I stumbled back, the shadows creeping closer as I fought the urge to scream. Were they? Some twisted manifestation of my fears. "No, get away from me," I yelled, the weight of terror sinking into my stomach. But they only smiled wider, their features growing more pronounced, like a warped reflection of my past. I turned and ran, the light flickering ever more dimly behind me. I broke through the clearing and gasped when I found myself facing a small cabin, its wooden door ajar. My instinct screamed at me to keep running, but something drew me to it. I hesitated, the growl from earlier rumbling again in the distance. "Maybe there's something inside," I whispered to myself. "Maybe I can find a way out." I approached the door, cautiously peeking inside. My pulse thrummed in my ears. What if it was worse? What if the shadows were waiting within? With one last glance back at the dancing lights, I steadied my breath and stepped into the cabin. The door creaked ominously, and I turned to see if anything was following. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me with a finality that made my heart skip. I was not alone. Everything was dark, save for a single beam of moonlight streaming through a cracked window. In the faint light, I could make out shapes, figures slumped against the walls. Each one was unmistakably human. That's when I realized I was not just dealing with shadows, but something much more tangible, something that felt like a twisted family reunion. Now I needed answers, but what I found in that cabin could change everything. The air inside the cabin was stale, filled with the scent of damp wood, and something far worse, an odor I couldn't quite place, like decaying leaves. My stomach churned as I peered closer at the figures against the wall. They were hunched over, their features obscured in the shadows. "Hello," I tried again, my voice barely a whisper. A part of me hoped they might respond, that they could be saved or at least explain what was happening. The figures didn't move. I took a tentative step forward, my pulse quickening with each crunch of debris underfoot. Then, one of the figures lifted its head. I stumbled back, heart racing, as I made out a familiar face, my brother's. "Daniel?" I gasped, but something was off. His eyes were hollow, devoid of the warmth I remembered. They glimmered with fear and desperation, a reflection of my own. Elena, he croaked, his voice raspy, as if he hadn't spoken in years. You shouldn't have come here. My heart leapt, but I couldn't move closer. The unease in my chest grew heavier as he slumped back down, disappearing into the shadows once more. Was he trapped? Or something worse? Daniel, I called, taking another step forward, but the darkness seemed to pull him away. I felt a chill prickle down my spine. What was holding him? Suddenly, the others began to stir. One by one, they lifted their heads. Each face morphed into a grotesque version of someone I knew. Friend from high school, family members long gone. All twisted and trapped in the dimness, their mouths moving, but no sound coming out. Panic seized me. Stop, I shouted. Why are you here? The shadows began to writhe, closing in towards me. Desperately, I turned to the door, only to find it sealed shut. No way out, just the oppressive silence and the hollow eyes of those who had once been alive. Then I felt a tug on my ankle. I looked down and saw one of the figures reaching for me, a bony hand gripping me with surprising strength. Don't go, Elena, it rasped, its voice a haunting echo of someone I loved. Stay with us, get away. I screamed, flinging my foot free. I stumbled back, breathless, as the figures pressed forward, their expressions morphing into vengeful masks. Each one of them cried out in anguish. That's when I noticed a figure at the far end of the cabin, hidden in the shadows. It stood tall and still, unnaturally quiet. I couldn't make out its face, but I could feel its gaze piercing through me. It raised a finger and pointed directly at me. My chest tightened. I wasn't alone in this madness. I caught a glimpse of a glinting object at its feet, something metallic, maybe an old key. With a surge of determination, I dashed toward it, pushing past the clutching shadows. As I reached for the key, the whispers grew frantic as if a storm was brewing. But as soon as my fingers touched the metal, everything went dark. I heard their voices growing louder, a cacophony of pleas mixed with laughter. It was all too much. I had to escape, but was that key the answer or doom? Then, before I could make a decision, I felt a grip around my throat. I froze, choking on the air. Someone was behind me. I gasped for air, struggling against the grip tightening around my throat like a vice. My heart raced. I could barely see in the suffocating darkness. Panic surged within me, drowning out all thought but one. I had to fight back. My fingers clawed at the unseen force, desperate to loosen its hold. Then came a flash of light, brief, blinding. For a split second, I saw the shadowy figure behind me, its face a contorted mask of longing and anger. It was one of them, the ones who craved, yearning to make me part of their twisted reality. The grip slackened for just a second, and I seized the moment. I twisted away, falling forward onto the cold wooden floor. Breathless, I scrambled towards the door, but before I could reach it, the darkness enveloped me once again. The shadows stirred, whispering my name, taunting. Join us, they hissed, an echoing chorus of familiar voices softening to a lullaby. I couldn't give in. I turned back, forcing myself to confront the figures surrounding me. No, I shouted, my voice cracking. I want to stay. I choose to fight. Suddenly, a warm light surged through the cracks of the cabin, filling the room, pushing at the edges of shadow. It pulsed with the rhythm of my heartbeat, and the laughter faded for a moment. Silenced by my refusal, I remembered the key, a lifeline, and an anchor as shadows mourned in soft, desperate tones. I dove for the metallic object, grasping it tightly. As I gripped it, I felt its energy coursing through me, a remnant of hope. It glinted in the light that surrounded me now, urging me onward. With the light pulsating around me, I charged toward the far wall where the swirl of shadows converged, the air thick with anticipation and despair. As I approached, the shadows recoiled, screeching as the light expanded, erasing their twisted forms. Suddenly, I smashed the key against the wall and shouted, "Let me out!" A blinding flash erupted, illuminating the entire cabin and driving the shadows back. Then there was silence that I felt my body pulled through a thin veil, the cabin dissolving around me. The world went gray, and just as quickly, light enveloped me completely, a warmth pulling at my core. The pressure released, and I fell on a soft grass. Panting, I opened my eyes slowly to find myself lying on the bank of the very same lake I had camped by just days before. The moon hung high above, casting a silvery glow on the water. I sat up bewildered, scanning my surroundings. Everything felt untouched, like I had woken from a terrible dream. The air was still, crisp normal. But was it? I glanced around. My tent, my gear was all there. I pushed myself to my feet, heart hammering like a drum. Had I truly escaped? My eyes caught on something glinting on the grass. I bent down to pick up the key. It shimmered in my palm, the weight of it unsettling yet grounding. I didn't understand what it meant or what I had just experienced that a sudden rustle broke the silence, and my heart dropped. I spun around, ready for something to jump out of the shadows, but nothing came. I was alone. No laughter, no figures, nothing but the whispering trees. I could go home, but the lingering doubt gnawed at me. Had it all been in my head, or were the woods still alive, watching, waiting for the next unwitting soul to wander too close? I shivered at the thought. As I gather my things, I glanced back at the woods, the shadows creeping along their edges. A part of me wanted to run, to never look back. But as I drove away, I felt the chill of the night linger with me, the unshakable sense that some threads of the past are never fully unwoven. I might have escaped, but the questions would haunt me: who watched, who craved, and what would happen if someone else ventured into their domain. I shook my head, trying to clear away the thoughts. I had made it out, but I couldn't help feeling I might never truly leave those woods behind.